I tend to get bored very quickly. So I have to change the rules of the games that I am playing all the time. I thought that I would write a series of 16 detectives. I'll explain later why 16. And they all will be different. Each of them would be written in a different style. I had another project which I called the genres. I decided that I would write one archetypical novel one book depending to a different genre. And I would call it just by the name of this genre. Then I had a project which was called The Authors. I would write under new pen names. Nobody would know that it's me, which would keep me absolutely free. That's how I created two ghost writers, a man and a woman. There were two big book projects that I focus on now. One of them is the history of Russian state. It's a multi-volume project where I just quite simply write about what happened in Russia just from the very beginning, from the 9th century. I felt that I did not understand my own country. I did not understand why it was the way it was, why the same chain of events was happening through centuries, why every attempt of making Russia a freer, better country always ended with worse oppression. That's how I wrote the first volume, the second volume, and then when I was gathering material for the third volume, which is 15th, 16th century, I suddenly started to recognize the country that I was living in. The builder of the Russian state, Ivan III, Великий князь, the great prince, the Grand Duke Ivan III, as far as I understand now, is the greatest person in Russian history. Because we all still live in that building which was laid out by him. I realized that there were 4 cornerstones on which this building stood, and they have always been intact. So those 4 cornerstones of the Russian state historically are: first, the absolute centralization of power. The second cornerstone was the sacralization of the ruler, which is of course logical, because if the person takes all the decision, he has to be sacred, he has to be God, half God. The third rule is that also logical. No law in the country can be higher than the great Khan's will. So the idea of law state in Russia never worked. The fourth principle is that all the subjects of the state serve the state. Everyone. I don't think that the idea was to kill democracy in Russia. It was something that he was doing just, he thought, to save the country from falling apart. Because this is what happened after the Civil War. Stalin rebuilt the Golden Horde, which was much, much more strict than the Romanov Empire. And before that, it happened under Peter I, and so on and so forth. And there were a lot of people in present-day Russia, even people from the opposition, who believe that the only way to rule Russia and for Russia to survive is to have a very strong centralized state, which is, from my opinion, completely false. What I have understood from my reading of history is that in order for Russia to become a different state, a freer state, we have to change the layout of the state. It has to be changed completely. This system of, very strict centralization has to be changed by real federalization. Russia should become, it is actually called Russian Federation now, but it's not a federation. It should become a real federation. So money, power, even culture, has to be distributed equally. There should probably be not one, but 3 or 4 capitals in Russia. One political, one financial, one cultural, one scientific, that sort of thing.
So join me in thanking Boris for joining us today.